All right, item number 4 is work with a human mastering engineer. One of the big reasons that your stuff doesn't translate is that you're hearing it alongside other records that you love the sound of. And those other records that you love the sound of have been mastered. So even if you don't use a human mastering engineer and use an AI mastering engineer, just the idea of getting your stuff actually mastered can make it sit better. But the human mastering engineer thing is big, because a human mastering engineer can give you feedback about what they had to do to make your mix translate better across environments. This is one of the most valuable things I think I do for my mastering clients. It's not even mastering the record for them, for some of them. For those of them who want to become really good at mixing, or those who want to become mastering engineers themselves, like I encourage them to take advantage of me, like steal from me. I have had mastering clients who've gone on to become mastering engineers, and they only ever hired me to do mastering so that they could hear what I did to their tracks, have me tell them exactly what I did to their tracks, have them play around with it, see if they could beat my masters, get to a place where they're like, man, I'm going back and forth. I feel like I got to sound just like Justin's master. On this next one, I'm going to see if I can, beat him to the punch and do an even better master than him. I have had people use me as a mastering engineer so that they could become mastering engineers themselves. And I ain't the least bit angry about it. We're in a world of 8 billion or so people. I'm totally okay with it. If you want to use me in that way, do it. But so many mixing engineers, this is a much more common thing. A mixing engineer will come to me. Their first mix will have maybe a significant number of problems, and they'll ask me for feedback. When they ask for the feedback, I'll give the feedback. And they say, what's up? What did you have to do? Your master sounds so much better than my mix. And I'll tell them exactly what I did. Well, there's a few balance things, right? Your vocal, not as loud as the vocal on your favorite records, and not as compressed as the vocal on a lot of your favorite records. That's like thing number 1 that'll come up, especially people who are mixing their own voices. They're too sensitive to put on enough vocal compression and to bring their vocal loud enough. So that's one thing that'll come up, especially people who are mixing themselves. They're too shy with compressing the vocal and bringing up the mix. So maybe that's one piece of feedback they got. Maybe their cymbals were too loud in a certain section, and there is these kind of bright aspects that came out a bit too much when the overall mix got brightened up to live in the same world as some of their favorite sounding records. Maybe they were a little dark compared to some of their favorite sounding records. And then maybe I had a note about the kick or the bass, and your kick is a lot tubbier, not as tight as other stuff in your genre, or vice versa. So I might give some of those notes, and then I might give overall frequency balance notes. What I did on this one is I had to bring down stuff below 60 hertz by a dB and a half, or I had to bring up 60 hertz by a dB, and right here around 100, 120, there was an overabundance in the fundamental of the kick, and I had to suck that down a little bit, and that brought the low end into a lot better balance. And then you had a lot of stuff going on. There's this big hump right around 8K. Maybe you're using the same mic on like every single instrument, and that area just got a little bit too much. So maybe I use some dynamic EQ there. And I give them those notes. And they come back with their next mix. And they've cut all those things off at the pass. They've already addressed all those in the next mix that comes in. And they're like, what do I do now, coach? How did it go? How did it turn out? And I'm like, well, I had to do half as much stuff. You still have to pay me the same rate, but I did half as much stuff. Now the only thing I'm hearing is right here at 50 hertz or 60 hertz. I had to come up a tiny bit or come down a little bit, and maybe you had a little bit more in this 1K region than is ideal. And if you want a little bit more of a streamlined, glossy sound like some of those records you were really loving, that this 1K region is a little bit too much. So I tuck that down a little bit, and then maybe you went a little bit wider, or maybe you went so wide this time. I told you to go a little wider last time. You went so wide, I actually tucked it back in a hair. And that's what got it to feel right next to your favorite records. And I tell them that. And then the next time they come back, they're like, all right. And they have an even better mix. What now, coach? Not that they literally say, what now, coach? But you get the idea. That's how they're treating me. And after we've gone through a few projects together, it's like the master I do for them becomes almost a formality. Now, even if an AI mastering engineer could do as good of a job as a human mastering engineer, which I do not think they can do yet at this point, even if they could, do you yet get that from the AI mastering engineer? Maybe someday you will. Maybe there'll someday be AI mix critique coaches or something like that. I think it's less likely because of how much tastes evolve and change, but I don't know, if you feed it enough references, maybe it can tell you about what the differences are between your references and your record. And who knows, if AI gets smart enough, maybe it can tell you the top 10 tricks to make your record sound more like some of the other references, if that was the goal. But the other thing about human beings is that exactly copying other references is not necessarily the goal, and knowing when to go left from a certain reference, or which references to steer more towards, or when to ignore them completely and where to ignore them completely based on the differences in your track and theirs, that's something that, I don't know, comes down to taste. And can AI have taste? I don't know. I hope not. If AI can have taste, we're doomed. But I think that is an important thing, that you can have coaches, feedback, constructive criticism from people that you trust who help you with the translation problem. And this is one thing I really want to hammer home, because so many people look to technical solutions and technique solutions to their problems. And if you're having a problem with translation, sometimes a personal human solution is a better solution to the problem of getting something like translation to work than just techniques and technology. Hey, if you like that clip, you might love the full-length video that it came from. Or you might want to check out one of my full-length courses like Mixing Breakthroughs, Compression Breakthroughs, or Mastering Demystified. They will change the way you work forever, for the better, guaranteed, or your money back. Hope to see you on the other side.